when we're talking about vulnerabilities in general, if you are just starting an agency and you don't even know exactly what you need or need to be worried about or concerned or scared about,
Mhm.
what are the top vulnerabilities that people aren't even recognizing or are aware of?
If you're starting a business, you're starting an agency, you're signing up for all these different services, right? Like you're signing up for maybe payroll services or stock photography, all sorts of things, right? And so what's happening is like you're signing up for accounts in a number of different places. You're creating usernames and passwords everywhere, and it's just everywhere you do that, you're leaving a trail, right? So now you are susceptible to any one of those companies getting hacked.
So as you know, we've got another guest on the podcast. We last week, I guess for us, this is going to be some mental mind gymnastics for me. For us, this Friday, the Facebook hack episode comes out, which is last week for you, listener. So last week we had that episode come out where I talked about, I went through the whole story about how the Facebook hack happened with my personal Facebook profile. And then during that time, I immediately went to kind of like a digital identity security platform because after that, I felt super vulnerable. And then not only did I go to them, but I also reached out to partner up with them because I felt this was important enough for our listeners to also help secure themselves, and along with that, secure their digital agency. And what better company or guest to have on the podcast than the actual digital security experts. And on top of that, we have Jason from Aura, and who is not only relevant to one, what Aura is, but you also have a background in kind of the agency marketing space. Is that right, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the marketing world for 20 years now. I've worked with all sorts of different agencies and I would say I was not quite an agency, but like a one-man shop right out of college, doing websites for folks and hustling however I could.
Did you have your security down when you were right out of college? Were you
It was a little suspect right out of school.
Oh, hey, wait, we didn't get the last name. Give the full, and I don't want to butcher it. Jason, could you just say your full name? So
Yeah, it's
I don't.
Jason Fragoso.
All right.
Okay. Cool.
Now people know they have the recognition. They can.
I'm awful at introductions.
They can attempt to find you and see your security, right? That's.
Yeah. If it was up to me, I would just say read the description for the introductions, because I usually just like skip right over those. So I'm just terrible at it. But Cody is the better interviewer out of the two of us. But we have a format that we want to follow, and we usually like to jump into kind of your history. I feel like it gets the audience a little warmed up. It gets them familiar.
Yeah, I think especially here, like, because Aura is not necessarily agency specific. It's bigger than that, right? I mean, you do privacy, security online for anybody and everybody, right? But you in particular, you have the crossover experience here of where it ties into or where it applies for agencies in particular. I think that's what we're most excited to blend the two.
Sure.
Because I remember checking it out, after we experienced the hack. Jake was telling me about it, and I was looking at it, and I thought, oh, like this is for everybody. This is for your grandma. I mean, this is a lot bigger than that. But agencies, especially early on, are one man shops. Small teams, and it is very personal. So, but yeah, I will tag in. And I'll start with some of the questions. And the first thing is, you said you got out of college, you were building websites and that sort of thing. After that, can you just give us like a quick condensed how you went from that to all the way to Aura?
Yeah, sure. So when I went to college, this is now quite a while ago, for folks that are kind of in their early 40s, they'll be able to follow along here. When I went to college, there really wasn't much of like web development, web design courses. It was like there's graphic design, there's computer science, and there was like this web piece that was in the middle, like was not really not really covered in a lot of places. So I ended up going to a college in Boston called Northeastern University, and one of the things they did is they have a big co-op program there. So you spend 6 months working and then go to school for 6 months, and you go back and forth. And for me, it felt like a really great spot because I wanted to learn web design and development. I was kind of always on the creative side, but I also really appreciated the business angle as well. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do getting out of school. Like, 20 plus years later, I still haven't quite figured it out. But, it was a way for me to learn on the job, being a webmaster and doing web development early on, which was basically just like HTML, CSS. And then then it became learning how to code in JavaScript a bit. And then that kind of starts to take you down a very different path. But I learned how to code and design kind of on my own and then on the job, right? So, like I said, I started having some side hustles of building websites for businesses. I think probably one of the most fun stories was I was driving by a car dealership, and they had a car that I really, really wanted, and I knew I couldn't quite afford it. And I looked up their website, and I was like, this site could use some work here. So I ended up buying the car and like paying for half of it with a website that I built for them.
That's
so
awesome.
That was kind of the first time that I actually got paid for doing work.
Nice. I built a website for a microwave once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what? I don't even know about this.
Yeah. So it was in 2020. I think it was in 2021. 2020. March 2020. I just moved from my suburban kind of Overland Park, Kansas apartment to Kansas City, Missouri apartment with my new roommate, and it didn't have a microwave. So I was like, my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, her brother, so my brother-in-law, it was like, hey, I'm starting a gym floor repair business, and I need a website. I was like, well, I can build you one. What I need though is a microwave. And so I found the nicest microwave I could possibly find. It was like a $200 microwave. And I was like, well, I padded it too. So I also got a really nice mini fridge out of it as well.
Nice.
So that was probably not half of a car though.
I say it. Cars, that's impressive.
I mean, I had to pay for half of the car, but the website certainly got me a much nicer car than I would have afforded otherwise. So I was pleased with it. But yeah, I mean, so after school, I kind of took the first job that I could get, and it was for a web hosting company called Endurance. They actually had just transitioned, so they were previously called Bizland. They had this small business focus, and they owned a few properties at the time, but they had just kind of transitioned from a world of being ad-supported hosting to kind of paid subscriptions. And I think one of the funniest things was after a little bit of time there, we had kind of grown to 100,000 customers, and they asked me to kind of put together a big sign that we could put in our cafeteria that said 100,000 customers, and we all signed it. And we put it up in the cafeteria right next to the sign that says 1 million customers, because the 1 million customers was all free ad supported customers. And when we transitioned to paid customers, it was like you were just holding on for dear life, trying to get any of them to convert. None of them wanted to convert. So we worked really, really hard for those 100,000 paid customers that could actually pay the bills. But yeah, it was a really great experience for me because when I started there was probably 25 people. They went from several hundred people down to bare bones 20 people. And when I started there, I was the first new hire in a year. It was really strange because everybody was so excited to see me because it was I was the sign of hope. We're hiring people again. Where we may have turned a corner. And
you get in there, it starts to feel like a cult because everyone's just right. How can I help you?
Yeah, exactly.
Please don't leave us.
But yeah, I was kind of lucky enough that they needed a lot of help in a lot of different areas, and they were happy to let me get my hands on a lot of different things. So I was hired kind of as it was a brand marketing job, but I soon was kind of managing the website, managing like the product marketing on that site. I was kind of doing anything that needed to get done, right? And I stayed with that company for a long time. It was early on, it seemed like I'll stick around here for a year or so. I don't know if this place is going to make it. And then little by little, things kept growing and kind of moving in the right direction. I was, really fortunate to have great mentors there. And it was just a kind of really scrappy bunch, people that I really liked being around and kind of solving problems with. And I ended up staying there about 15 years. So we were able to kind of grow and take it public, and had a really good experience there. And then kind of the final days there, we were probably public for maybe 2 or so years after I had left. It's just a different world. I wanted to get back into kind of a startup environment. I wanted to do something new. So I ended up kind of trying to be really selective about where I went next, because at that point in my career, it was kind of an easy job, right? Like, you've been doing it for a long time, you start to get on autopilot. And so I wanted to make sure whatever I chose next, I kind of really enjoyed. So I ended up making a very different career move, and I went to a company that sold metal 3D printers. So I was kind of leading the growth team there. One of the big attractions was my boss there. He was kind of a former product manager at Apple. Was a really great guy to work for. And I was there for little less than a year. And, my boss, after a short period of time, had left the company. We had got it was like a full new crew. And they had a very different vision about what they wanted to do. And so me and my team were let go one day. It was very shocking to me.
Cool.
We all thought we were kind of moving things in the right direction, but they just had a different path they wanted to take. And I was pretty devastated. I was really gutted, because I had always been kind of a top performer, and it was a really difficult pill to swallow.
Was it an acquisition, or just new people got moved in? And
New people got moved in. So it was a place that kind of had a lot of kind of political issues within the company, in terms of, like, I'm sure anybody who's worked in B2B understands, like, the fights between sales and marketing. And this company in particular had, really, it was a really difficult environment to operate in. And when my boss left, it was like I was his guy. And when the new guy came in, he wanted to run things his way, and that's, completely his prerogative. He can certainly do that. And, he just kind of cut a whole bunch of us.
Based on your experience, I imagine he was more inclined to focus on sales and direct acquisition than
I think
more of a marketing effort.
Yeah, I think it was really maintaining that kind of relationship with sales was really, really important to them. And I felt like the whole time there was like trying to be a bridge builder and be someone who could compromise. And it just didn't work out. Like, he wanted to bring in his own people, and that was fine. But it was tough for me because it kind of came out of nowhere. It was funny because when I had left, a bunch of us had kind of left Endurance. The people that I came in with kind of all started going their own separate ways. And a few of them had started, thinking about a company they wanted to build. And they had asked me if I wanted to be a part of it. And I was like, it's just the seed of an idea. It's not really anything just yet. I was like, I want to do this thing. So when I got let go, I reached out to, one of my friends, and I was like, so funny story, I'm available now. And he was like, he's like, come in tomorrow. He's like, we want to meet with you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And those were the founders of Aura. So like the founders of Aura kind of a lot of them came from Endurance. And in a lot of ways, we kind of got the band back together. And it was great because I didn't know if I would ever want to, I loved those people, but I didn't know if I wanted to kind of get back in business with them again. I wanted to kind of create a new path for myself. But it was great meeting with them because we I had a really great conversation with our CEO. like that next day. And we just really talked candidly about kind of all the things that we did right at Endurance, the things we did wrong, the culture, he wanted to build this new company. And it was great. I was like, this sounds great. And it was kind of the same thing when I started at Endurance. I was like, all right, I'll give this a try. We'll see where this goes. I'm not going to, bank that this is going to be the place I'm going to be at for the next several years, but we'll take it day by day. And it was, it was rough in the beginning, right? We were starting from scratch again. But I really,
how old is Aura?
So I've been here for 5 years. So we're like 5.5 years, basically. So the pieces, like the products that kind of underpin Aura, some of them we got through acquisition. So like most of the identity protection tools that we offer come from a company that had been around since like the late 90s, literally. So we acquired that mostly for like IP, and that company itself has a really interesting history. Because when we started the company, we had this vision of creating a kind of a unified security suite, right? So we looked at the space and we said, there are antivirus tools and password managers and VPNs, and there's all these like individual tools. But most people don't have more than one of them, right? You might have identity protection or a password manager, but you don't really have all of them. And the analogy that like we kept coming back to is like, it's like locking your front door, but you're leaving the back door open, right? Like you're protecting, part of your online self, but you're potentially you're vulnerable in other areas. And part of it is like, it's really expensive, right? It's really expensive to buy all of these tools. So you choose the one that you think will help you the most, and you kind of just cross your fingers, right? So we said, what if we kind of bring these things all together? And not only we bring them all together, and you're not just buying a bundle of stuff, like what if they actually worked with each other, right? So there are competitors that now offer all of these. Basically anyone in the security space kind of starts to move this direction because they want to make more money from their customers by selling them additional services. But we said, what if we start there? What if we start in the place where they're all interconnected? And that way, if we have identity protection and it's doing dark web monitoring, and we see that your information's on the dark web, if you're also using a password manager by Aura, we can automatically update your password and you don't have to do anything, right? So if those two things are in kind of the same house and we can control both of them, we can make it very easy for the consumer to update passwords and help keep them safe. Like we can use intelligence from your antivirus or your VPN to inform other things and start to understand over time patterns of things you do online, so that we can identify, this looks off, right? This looks uncommon, and alert you to it and be smarter about it. So that was the idea, but it was really, really ambitious, obviously, right? And so we ended up we built an antivirus tool, we built a VPN that went on top of it, but that identity protection piece was really, really complicated. And we ended up acquiring a business that had a really great identity protection tool. And it was kind of a perfect fit for us because it was a great product, but from a user experience standpoint, it needed a lot of work. So we were able to kind of take those pieces and kind of integrate it in, and very quickly start to continue to build on top of that. And then from there, we really enhanced our VPN software. We started to build more family-oriented solutions on top of it. That was kind of like the next piece, was there's security, but then there's this adjacency of like, if you have a family, there's some other things that are kind of specific to families that you generally care about, making sure that your kids are, seeing content that they shouldn't be, or kind of monitoring their screen time, things like that, that if you have a VPN, if you have, an antivirus tool, you can kind of control those things as part of that as well. So you could have added benefit of some additional kind of family focused features. So that was kind of like the kind of the last piece of the puzzle that we've added, over the past year. But yeah, it's been a really interesting ride. So like I said, I've been here a little over 4 years. When I started, my title was marketing. It was just do
the marketing, that's marketing department's job, and it's just you.
Yeah.
It's just you have a door with a paper note on it that says marketing department.
Right. Yeah, there was definitely no that's not my role. you just do whatever needed to get done. And so over time, as we grew, early on, we grew really quickly through affiliates and paid social and paid search, like the kind of real high intent traffic. And then over time, we wanted to start, really building our brand and, doing more top of funnel activity. So doing television, doing radio, doing influencer work. And that was all stuff that was new to me. So that became kind of a big part of what I do, was kind of exploring new channels, testing them out, seeing if we can grow those out. And then just over time ended up, where we are today, which is the full direct to consumer growth team kind of reports to me. So I manage that whole group. And there's probably, there may not be anything on the team that I haven't already done, and like already done here. So, it's SEO, SEM, social. I'm not necessarily great at any one of those things, but have done them well enough to kind of get myself here. But I've always kind of seen myself as more of like a kind of a reluctant leader. I'm I like to do the work. I'm really interested in the work. I didn't choose this path because I wanted to lead a big team. That's not the thing that really, gets me excited. But like solving problems and solving all sorts of different problems within this group is really exciting. And we have an amazing team. We've built a really great team. So I learn from the folks on my team quite a bit every day. So it's been great. It's been a really great ride for me, and really excited to see this. And hopefully we see this in the same way that we saw Endurance, which was, at some point going public or, getting to a really big spot. But I, never thought that we would kind of be in the place we are today, with, hundreds of thousands of customers and, A-list celebrities as like our,
I was gonna say,
it's wild.
Do you talk? How did you get Robert Downey Jr.
Like, y'all got Iron Man. Let's go.
Yeah.
Was that you? Did you get him in?
It was not me personally, no. And we got Robert Downey Jr., not Iron Man. I don't want Marvel to sue us.
Sorry. Scratch that. Take it back. Take it back.
Or scratch. Cut it.
But yeah, so on our board, we have a gentleman by the name of Jeffrey Katzenberg, who's a titan kind of in his own right. So Jeffrey Katzenberg runs a kind of an investment group called WonderCo. And there's a couple folks there that, we worked with since the beginning. And one of the folks that work at WonderCo is Jeffrey Katzenberg, who's founder of DreamWorks. He's the father of Shrek, and
a hero.
Yeah. So working with Jeffrey, we were connected with Robert, who was kind of interested in the problem. He's got a couple young boys himself. So he's a parent. He's interested in cybersecurity, and kind of when he heard about the mission, wanted to be a part of it. So he ended up becoming an investor, and he's been an investor and a spokesperson since the beginning of this year. He's showed up to a couple company meetings, on Zoom, and it's always like the reveal when we introduced him to the group was like mind blowing, right? Because it was like we were moving out of this COVID world where when we all started working remotely, I think a lot of companies did this, where like when you had like a big company meeting, you would do like some cameo with a celebrity to like raise everybody's spirits. And like we did that a couple times with like just really, really random folks, to just like as a fun thing to get a celebrity to like join a meeting. And then, when we revealed Robert, it was just like, is this real? Is this?
It's a deep fake.
You know? Oh God. Yeah. I mean, that's the funny thing. It's like whenever we do ads with him on like social media, like all the comments are like, is this really Robert? This is a deep fake. This is like a giant ruse. Like people have like,
I haven't even run into that yet. That's wild.
It's crazy because they're like, you're an AI powered security company. This is like, you're faking Robert. Like there's going to be some reveal like a year from now. Like people have like created like a whole story for us.
I feel like people would be desensitized to it by now with everything Ryan Reynolds does.
Right. But sometimes like some of these comments, I'm like, actually, that's good. I wish we had done that. Like, yeah, like
You should comment
sorry,
back if you manage the social page. You should comment back
yeah,
like, actually, that's a good idea. Thank you.
sorry. He actually just works with us.
Have you talked to him then? Is he a cool guy?
Yeah, he's a cool guy. Yeah, he's great. Jeffrey's great. It's it's
He's not going to
really
say no on the
no,
podcast.
no.
He's
Good.
not going to be like,
Good.
no, Robert Downey Jr. is not a cool guy.
He's protected. You got the security guy. I mean, he can say whatever he wants. He's totally fine, right? So.
No, he's great. He's a great spokesperson, and like he does care about the the problem, right? So it works that he's kind of in the sweet spot of, he's got kids and he really likes the idea. It's funny because I think there are other folks, like there are other Avengers that have invested in other security companies. Like I think I want to say like Chris Evans is like an investor in 1Password or something. Like there's a whole set of them that are invested in a lot of
That's
these
so
companies,
cool to
which
just like
is just
refer to
great.
them as the
What's his name?
Avengers.
He did.
Like,
That was that movie Black Hat that kind of flopped. That wouldn't surprise me if he did it too. Why am I blanking? But the guy, I don't know. Sorry, why was I'm blanking on his name though? The Thor guy.
Chris Hemsworth.
It's another Chris. Okay, yeah. He did Black Hat, so like that seems appropriate, right? I remember watching the movie in theaters and then like later on learning that it didn't do nearly as well as they thought, but it was interesting to say the least.
Hey, what does your timer say in the top left?
32, 24.
Oh, okay, perfect. Mine says 33 seconds. I got nervous. I was like, did we lose all of that? Because my internet went out for like a solid minute, and I was like, no. But I'm back. All right.
Okay, I'm gonna keep rolling. I don't know how to transition this. I just want to say all of that's amazing, and I think it's super cool, and I genuinely feel that way. Like, it's so interesting. I feel like now I'm in my 30s, right? And the age group now of, I remember reading a lot about more early internet stuff when I was just getting into things. And now I feel like this next generation of the internet entrepreneur interested people are much more social heavy and video heavy, and that's like it's a world, it's a new world, and it's one that we're keeping up with, but I don't even know if they know about companies like EIG or the history of things like affiliate marketing and what it was like in the early days when it was very wild west. And if they find things like the introduction to ransomware interesting, right? Because I do, and I think of things like that, especially when it relates to this. And if you're cool with it, I want to switch into the more direct questions of things that people here should just know, and we can give them relatively straight answers. So, you said a lot of things that I'm sure our listeners have heard. VPNs, passwords, obviously. When we're talking about vulnerabilities in general, if you are just starting an agency and you don't even know exactly what you need or need to be worried about or concerned or scared about, what are the top vulnerabilities that people aren't even recognizing or are aware of?
So I think, when you're starting any business, right, you're just far more exposed, right? Because your information is just out there at a higher rate, right? So if you're starting a business, you're starting an agency, you're signing up for all these different services, right? Like you're signing up for maybe payroll services or stock photography, all sorts of things, right? Like if you tracked all the number of accounts you have, I'm sure it would kind of blow your mind. And then, I mean, just to like the opening question, right? Like you're probably going to get a website, you're going to get a domain. When you register a domain, unless you buy domain privacy, which if you bought it at Bluehost, I'm sure you did, because we were really good at convincing you should get domain privacy. It's worth the money for sure. If you don't, I mean, your contact information is just posted, right? And so what's happening is like you're signing up for accounts in a number of different places. You're creating usernames and passwords everywhere. You're providing personal information, and it's just everywhere you do that, you're leaving a trail, right? So now you are susceptible to any one of those companies getting hacked, right? And it doesn't have to be like a crazy hack. It could just be maybe someone within that company, or maybe it's a support person accidentally gives someone information that they shouldn't be giving, right? Like there's social engineering that is in a lot of ways equally effective as just being flat out hacked, right? Everybody thinks of like some guy in a black hoodie, like in a dark room, like hacking companies. Like that's one way, but there are many others that are kind of much more convenient and don't really require anybody to have a special technical skill set. But you're leaving these little pieces of information everywhere, and the challenge is, just because generally people are lazy, is you don't end up using unique passwords, and you don't use like good password hygiene for all those different services, and you start to have these connective threads between things, right?
Jason just called me lazy.
Hey, I'm the laziest of the bunch. So, but it's very difficult to have unique passwords across a number of different services, and then those passwords require capitals and lowercase and special characters and numbers, and before you know it, you start creating like consistent patterns right across those things. Like you're using your dog's name and a $sign and your birth date, and you're using all these common pieces, right? So sometimes they're just easy to bust on their own, but like if you get access to one of those, it's far easier to get access to all the other things, right? And if you're running an agency, like you're just more susceptible because there's more accounts, but then also like you're just more of a target too, right? So if you mentioned ransomware, right? So if you have advertising accounts, if you have a social media account, and someone gets access to those things, it could really lock your business up, right? Like you could potentially not be able to operate. So that's leverage for a hacker to be able to get those things. So, what we really want to do is avoid this from ever happening in the first place, right? So, that's why within our kind of set of products, we have things that kind of monitor for these things, whether these things happen at all, but also tools like password managers and VPNs that hopefully prevent them from happening in the first place, right? We want to avoid the issue ever happening. So, it's I always say, like, kind of, to me, the easiest thing to work on is like just passwords, right? If you have a password manager, that will help you quite a bit. Because the password is the key. And, hopefully we're moving to a world where like passwords go away. Like maybe there's, biometrics and, using fingerprints and things like that. But having good password hygiene, using two-factor authentication, wherever you can, like that's going to go a long way. Like whether this episode inspires you to try Aura or not, like do those things. Always use 2FA, and try. There's free password managers out there. Like try those if you don't want to try Aura. Our pitch is that it's all included, and you're going to get so much more than just a singular password manager. But those go a really, really long way.
So I didn't even know that like Aura at first. I didn't even know that Aura like monitored my passwords and usernames like just across the web. I ended up switching to Aura's password manager because I used another password manager that was free and then was moving to a paid model like every other password manager out there. I'm like, well, if I'm already paying for Aura for the digital security component of it, I might as well just use the password manager. And then literally like starting to do that, it was like getting notifications that was basically saying like, hey, one of your passwords that you use in the password manager was found in a data leak. And I'm like, oh well,
Yeah.
we should change that one.
Yeah. And it's not uncommon. So like if you have like a Gmail address that you've been using for a long time, I guarantee when you sign up and it runs a scan on it, it will find something. And it may not be a threat, right? It may be it finds some old account and you're not using that password anymore, and you're generally okay. But it's uncommon actually that you sign up and we don't find something. There are free services like Have I Been Pwned is like probably the one of the most popular ones. You can plug in your email address there. It will look for like old data breaches. Our tool does that and then some, but it's doing that on a regular basis for you, right? Like it's doing that plus looking in a whole bunch of different areas across different things, not just your email address, right? So when you sign up, it's your email address, all the things that you use to sign up. So your credit card number, your social security number, we're able to look at those things. But anything else that you want to monitor, you can plug into the tool, right? So if you've ever done like one of those like Google searches on yourself where it's just like get a Google alert whenever your name is found. Like think about that, but looking in the dark web, the in a number of different places to see if your social is there, your passport number, driver's license number, anything you want to kind of
I
search.
saw you can even monitor like membership cards, and I was like, I want to know who's putting their Costco membership into this thing.
Yeah, I mean that's someone who's going real deep. But we can certainly look for those as well.
Lauren signed me up for AARP.
Yeah.
She lied about my age, and so now I just get like tons of AARP mail, and so
Yeah.
maybe I should put my AARP membership in there to see if that's getting
Yeah.
out.
Oh, hey, quick question, because everybody, I hope everybody listening knows this, but in case they don't, what is the dark web?
So, so the easiest way to kind of think about it is there's essentially like an internet that exists that doesn't use domains in the way that you think about using domains, right? So instead of going to google.com, if you type in an IP address, you can also go to google.com, right? So think of it as like an unlisted internet, right? And that's where people kind of buy and sell personal information. There's lots of other shady things that happen there, right? It's essentially like the web, as if you had to kind of be in on the club and know how to find that address, right? It's just not easily searchable, and this is probably like the most basic description of it, but it's the way that I think people can understand is that there's essentially an internet. Think of it as the upside down, right, of like Stranger Things, right? So it's like a whole other world there. That you can't easily search, but people are kind of buying and selling information. They're doing all sorts of terrible things there because it is generally untracked. And that's where if you can kind of buy all sorts of information. There are like standard going rates of like, hey, how much is a credit card number? How much is like a full identity of someone's like health information? You can buy like basically a whole file of somebody, and people, these data breaches are kind of like building up that kind of I don't want to say Rolodex because I don't know if people really understand that, I've never had a Rolodex, but
we saw like I think like a lot of businesses know this, but as soon as you like incorporate and as soon as you start putting information out on a website, so this is a good point to like those unprofessional email addresses that we had in the cold open, which is like as soon as you start a business, one, you've got a lot of information that's already out there. Maybe you're some of it's protected because of your LLC, but if not, if you didn't listen to episode 1 and didn't get an LLC and you're just operating under a sole proprietorship as an agency, which you can do, or like as a freelancer, and then you set up your own website and now you've got your email and phone number up there, I mean, that's up for free grabs. So if you're also not getting like a specific business phone line or a specific business email, and you're putting that stuff out there, everybody's got it now. And all it takes is a very simple crawler to grab it. So even with this, like I know Aura doesn't really cater to the business side of things, but it's more about personal security and even like family security. But I use it for business. I mean, especially for agencies, you when and small agencies, like when you're a small agency or a freelancer, you are the agency. So your personal security is absolutely imperative for the security of your agency. I always think of this like, imagine like you held all of your client contracts, all of your client billing, all of your client everything in one area, and then your email gets hacked. Not even the email to the applications that you're logging into, but your email gets hacked. Because if your email gets hacked and they're in your email, they can recover everything else you got. And this like wasn't really a concept to me until the Facebook hack that we talked about last week. And that was kind of like, oh, like my personal Facebook hack, not even an email, just the Facebook hack shut down our agency's Facebook operations at like 100%. And not only that, but damaged our credibility because now it's like, oh, the agency that got hacked. That doesn't sound too great. Um, so but yeah, I wanted to make that like super apparent, but also I'm monitoring. So like you can monitor emails, whatever emails you have. I was showing Cody this, but I'm monitoring our employees' emails as well. So I don't just have my emails in there. I also have um, the employees and the team members' emails in there too. So if their emails have been leaked, or if like if their emails were leaked, I know the first thing that I'm going to do is tell them to go change their passwords because I don't know what their passwords are. But if their emails are leaked, chances are their passwords could be as well.
For sure, for sure. And just to clarify one thing, so I don't get fired. So I work on the direct to consumer side, and so we focus on kind of individuals that want to buy the product or families that want to buy the product. We do have kind of a partnership and employee benefits side as well. So just like you would get health insurance through your employer, we work with MetLife as kind of our key partner there to provide identity insurance, basically to provide our product to employees as well. So like an employer can buy it for all of their employees, or have some relationship where they do a discounted plan for your employees. What? It's usually for larger organizations, but even if you're a smaller organization, we can do kind of like individual deals where you can buy for all of your employees and get a discounted rate for kind of a bulk purchase.
I was just thinking about this.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking about, I was like, wow, this would be really good to be able to provide to like our employees. And then like thinking of how to facilitate that, but you answered that.
Yeah. Just give us a call. We'll be happy to hook you up. Yeah, it's becoming a more and more common thing, right? Like, so I think one of the stats we have on our site is it just talks about like the amount of assets that have been kind of stolen through identity theft, and it's like 10.3 billion. It's like some absurd number. But what's really interesting is that we crossed a threshold recently where there's a higher value of things that are stolen essentially digitally than physically. And if you think about your house, like you think about my house, I have camera on my doorbell. We have cameras on the house. I've kind of turned into a little bit of a tinfoil hat person. I don't know. I just like technology. So it just worked out. I think that was the thing. It was convenient. I like to have gadgets. So, but a lot of people have these cameras around their house. So it's like you're investing in like the physical security, but like you're far, far more likely to have your identity stolen or, have assets stolen more than someone is going to come and break in your house. I hope neither of those things happen. But if you think about generally where people are investing, they're investing in that physical security and not at all in their digital security. And if you understand the stats, you would say that investment is misplaced, right? And there's a better spot for it. And frankly, sometimes it's funny when people think about purchasing our products, some people will say, that's really expensive. I can't afford that every month. And then other people who have gone through an experience are like, I will pay whatever it costs. Like,
yeah,
it's valuable, right?
It's like, there's no way. There's no way you guys are. I mean, I would never look at your guys' prices and say that you're expensive at all. I mean, right. I paid $60 a month for my home security, and you're a fraction of that.
Right. So, we're going to be significantly less than that. And if you have a family plan, so I think the family is like actually one of the like secret values of our product set. Because you can have, I think it's like 6 adults you can put on your family plan. So on my family plan, I have my wife and I, but I also have my parents, right? So if something were to happen to them, I can help them. But they get their own logins, like they get their own kind of information. And then I have 2 kids, right? So I have them on there. I have my parents, and there's a lot of people that are kind of in this like in between age that that I am, where their parents are just not as digitally savvy as you are. So it helps to be able to kind of keep an eye out for them, and make sure that they're safe and you feel good about it.
Yeah.
I got a question I feel like should have been asked a lot sooner, just
Yeah,
because we've answered it. And I want to say I want people to hear it as simply as we can too.
sure.
It's almost like a plug, but I just want you to be able to say it as directly as simply as possible. What are the features of Aura broken out? And specifically noted here, like the email monitoring, asset monitoring, password manager, VPN. If I'm
Yeah,
missing anything critical, and then what do those things cover you for or protect you from? Because like you said,
sure.
people might know. I'm afraid we might have some really dedicated people. I hope we know our retention numbers are good, that have gotten this far, and they're like, this is cool, and I'm still confused, and I don't know what all these individual things do or mean.
Yeah, I
So
mean, so there are a lot of pieces to it, right? So think about it as like protecting your identity. So there's identity protection, which kind of monitors your credit, monitors your dark web information. You get identity insurance as part of that. So if someone were to steal your identity, you get an individual plan, $1 million of insurance to help you recoup that. On a family plan, I think it's $5 million. So there's kind of this identity protection aspect. And then there's other tools that you're probably familiar with. So there's password manager. So keep your password safe. When you're logging into something online, you get a little browser extension, little widget that helps you log in, so you don't actually have to know the password for everything. It will auto generate a password for you. I think one of the things that's unique about our service is there's a handful of online tools like banks and other services where we can actually automatically change the password for you if it was breached. We can't do that everywhere, but we've kind of selected a handful of really critical sites where we can do that. So there's password manager. I may have said AV. It's short for antivirus. So I think most folks understand what antivirus is, but it's kind of scanning for malware on your device. So that could be. It's mostly for your desktop device, right? So you can put it on an Android phone. You cannot put it on an iOS device. iOS does not allow for antivirus tools. They kind of lock down that system. But if you have an Android device, it will scan your Android device. Or if you have a Windows PC or a Mac computer, it will scan that.
Wait, it'll do Mac, but it won't do iOS.
It will do Mac, but not iOS. Yeah. So you can get antivirus for Mac, but not a phone or an iPad. Yeah.
Oh, weird.
It's not allowed.
Apple's like, no, we stopped that at the phone.
Right. I mean, that's kind of baked into their pitch, right? Is that you're safer on their devices because they lock things down,
But not a Mac.
but not a Mac. Not a Mac.
Nope.
So, and I think a lot of people that are Mac users are like, I'm a Mac user, so I don't have to have antivirus, right? And that's sort of true. Like you're I would say you're less susceptible, but you're not totally safe, right? Like you can still go to a website and download something you shouldn't. And if you have an antivirus tool, we will scan that download as it's coming in to make sure that it's safe. So there's kind of what we call protecting devices, which is antivirus and VPN. So I think probably a lot of your listeners understand VPNs in that, like, you can route your traffic into a different country. That's not exactly the kind of what we're going for. So our use case is more if you are over public Wi-Fi, or frankly, if you're anywhere, right? Like you could be in your house and it's still good practice to have it turned on. But ours is like a very lightweight VPN that basically encrypts all of the data that's coming in and out of your Wi-Fi, right? It's protecting that connection.
A lot of our listeners too are I would say almost like nomadic. So like
Yeah.
they move all over the place, but being able to have that VPN, because a lot of times people are going to be working in coffee shops or working on the beach or whatever. And I don't know if there's Wi-Fi out there, but at least wherever they're working at publicly, they can just flip that VPN switch on and not have to worry about any of their stuff being seen.
Correct. And if it's not on, so if you have the Aura app on your Android or iOS device, it will alert you if you're on public Wi-Fi. If it recognizes that you're on an unsecured Wi-Fi, it will just send you a little notification. It's like, you're on unsecured Wi-Fi. Would you like to secure it? Basically, you just click a button and it will switch on the VPN, and you just move on with your life. But it's it's super valuable if you're traveling a lot, or if you're spending a lot of times in coffee shops and using free Wi-Fi, right? Nothing in life is free, I guess. So so that's another big piece. And then there's some privacy aspects. So VPN is also a bit kind of privacy focused, but we have something called Privacy Assistant. Sometimes you'll hear us talk about it as data broker opt-out. So there's all sorts of shady companies out here that are kind of buying and selling your personal information, and they're selling it to folks that want to market to you and do all sorts of things. And if you've ever Googled yourself, there's all sorts of like people finder sites as well. So like the Spokios of the world and People Finder, and there's kind of a lot of those kind of a little bit shadier businesses. It's with every one of those, you can request independently to have your data removed, right? So like there's a do not call list, like a national do not call list. There are all these independent data brokers, and if you go to them independently, they usually have some spot on their website that says like, remove my information, and you can request that it's removed. But you probably don't even know how many of these things are out there. And then same thing with the people search sites. There are so many of these sites that frankly just seem to pop up overnight. And you can have your data removed, like legally you can ask them. But with our product, what we do is you put in your information, and you usually by default, people have this service enabled, and it will remove you from all of these things. And it will remove you every single month. It will check to see if it went back on the list and remove you, right? Because you can ask for your data to be removed, but if they somehow get it again, as does happen, you would have to request again, and you wouldn't know that it's there. So this will remove you over and over and over again. So, every month I get an email and it's like, we removed you from XYZ. It's all these different sites that I have no idea what they are. But it's, different folks that are buying and selling my information. And that's something that like sometimes people see that feature. There's a whole bunch of features in the product that people are like, I would pay for just that. Like that is the thing that I want.
I swear my spam calls like got lower after like the couple of months that I've been on, because as soon as I signed on, like literally within 2 days, it was like, or requested to remove your information from this data broker, or requested to remove your information from this data broker. And I was like, oh.
So that was a question that I had was, does this also potentially benefit you, even things like direct mail, or is it not?
Absolutely. Okay. Definitely direct mail. You're still going to get letters in the mail for if you have a credit card with somebody, or if you have a Kohl's account or whatever. Like you're going to get catalogs and whatever. But those are generally things that you've opted into in some way.
Who doesn't though is Panda Express, but we're still waiting and hoping. But they don't do anything for me. I support them so much. Don't even have no reward system, no discounts, no.
Cody's single-handedly supporting the Panda Express business in Iowa City.
Yeah, man.
I love them so much.
Well, hopefully they hear this and they give you a little kickback.
Shout out Panda Express.
Yeah, you guys want to sponsor? Let's go.
It's funny. Like a few weeks ago, we had like 3 straight days where I went to the mailbox and there was like nothing there, and my wife was like, "Has the mailman forgotten us? Like, is he in our house?" And I was like, "No, or it's working." It is. As someone who likes to go to their mailbox, and it's like I work from home, so it's like one of the like highlights of my day is like getting out of my office and like going to see if there's anything in the mailbox. You might not like this product because I go there and the only thing that's there is like my credit card bill. It's just like
all your bills.
It's just my bill.
It's just like, hope you enjoyed your work break. Here's a bill.
Right. And it's like I could go paperless, but then I would, it would be even the sadder trip, I guess.
I would not pay bills if I was all paperless.
Do you do a lot of online shopping though? Like, do you get a lot of packages?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's the solution. You just got to buy more.
My house is like, the Amazon guy knows me quite well at this point. So
we call them presents here when they show up. I'll be like, "You got a present, Jenny," just because It's fun, right? I mean, you work
Yeah.
from home, and like you said, when something comes, it feels like a present, even if you bought it for yourself. You're just
Yeah.
like, yeah, all right, somebody bring me something.
It's like sometimes I want to split out my purchases like over a couple of days. So it's like
Yeah.
they're
But
constantly.
they're always like Amazon's always like, "Do you wanna combine your boxes, for one ship?" I'm like, "No, I want it spread out because I wanna be
Right.
happy multiple days."
When more and more boxes, just a couple empty boxes would be fine too. Um, but yeah, so we remove you from data broker lists as well, which is a great feature. We have a feature that's relatively new to the product set, which is called Call Assistant. So if you have a smart device, which most of us have at this point, we can filter your calls coming in. So um, some folks understand what like live voice messages are like Google Pixels have had this for a little while, and Apple's kind of recently added this where like when the call comes in you can like see the text of what someone is saying if they're leaving you a voicemail. So what our product does is if there's different filtering settings, but the most common one is if you're not on someone's contact list, you'll get this call assistant that is either your voice with like a little message saying like, can you tell me what you're calling for? Or there's like a digital voice that will say, you've reached Jason's phone, what can we do for you? And the person says what they're calling for, and there's kind of this like voice to text transcription that happens, and we scan that to see if there's any patterns of potential scams, right? So if you're calling and it's like, hey, we're calling from the IRS, Jason owes a bunch of money and yada yada yada, and it follows a certain script, like most of these scams like follow a kind of a pattern, right? If we identify that pattern, we won't send the call to you. We'll store that recording and we'll let you know, here's the recording. This is a potential spam call. And you'll never have to see that. If it's someone calls in and it's, hey, we're calling from, my kid's school, I'll get that message and, it'll say, this is the school and it's likely not spam. And it'll send it to me and I can accept those calls as they come in. So, it just acts as like a kind of a buffer between me and the potential scammers. And if there are things that are obvious scams, it just like kicks them out. So that's one of our newest features that will soon be coming to text as well. I think a lot of people I get all sorts of like fake FedEx deliveries and things like that, where you see like, here's a FedEx shipping, and you look at the link on it, and you're like, that is not legitimate. But they're really hard, right? Like, I mean, even someone who's feels like they're tech savvy and they're like, security aware, is it's easy to fall for these things, right? Because they're really, really good. Sometimes it's just like the dot is in the wrong place, and you're like, man, would have been really easy to fall for. So it just adds like another line of protection. So those are all the pieces that are part of like our security suite. And then if you have kids, and you want parental controls, there's a couple other things as well to monitor your kids online. So making sure that they're seeing age appropriate content, monitoring their screen time. My son is 14 and he plays a lot of, Roblox and Minecraft and games where there's kind of interaction and community. If you're playing those on a Windows computer, we can also scan those, and we can scan the conversations that happen within those games. So if we identify both text conversations and voice conversations that look like predatory or cyberbullying, the parent will get an alert about that message, and you can react to that as well. So we're really building up that set as well to kind of keep your kids safe online. And I think the approach that we've generally taken is like, there's staying safe online where you're just like, don't do it, just don't do these things, right? And as a parent, you start to understand like that's not a viable solution all the time, right? Like, I can tell my kid to not play this game, but if all of their friends are playing it, like it's like social suicide to them to not want to do that, right? So we try and find ways to kind of make those things safe, right? Like we don't want you to just kind of like unplug and disconnect from anything, because like the internet's amazing and there's so many great things to kind of get out of it. So we try and build technology that will help you like live with with the benefits of these things, but help reduce the downside.
Yeah, really becoming the full suite there.
Yeah.
like you said. So, well, we're getting to a point where we should probably wrap up. So I think, well, Cody, unless you had anything you wanted to piggyback on.
You'd be surprised. I actually shut up for a second because I was like, Jake usually has questions at the end that aren't written that he's going to throw out. So I'm going to say nothing. But other than a final plug, I had one question though, because I
Yeah.
liked how you said you're kind of like a reluctant leader. How do you feel about being on podcasts then? Is this fun for you?
Yeah,
Or
were you pushed into this?
um, so I generally don't do these things. Uh, you know, I've always been someone who's kind of struggled with anxiety growing up, and um, I try to push myself into doing things I don't necessarily want to do. And I think when I heard your show and I met you guys, like it felt like this would be a good conversation. It's not me standing on a TED stage, but
Mhm.
it's a good conversation. But yeah, I mean, I think honestly, I feel like most of my mentors and like my great bosses in my career, I probably would also say are probably reluctant leaders as well in a lot of ways, right? Um, the just when I got into business and when I kind of going throughout this path, I never said to myself, I want to be a CMO, I want to be a CEO. It was always like, I'm really interested in this technology. I'm really interested in learning more about this. So I always kind of come at it from like, I just want to learn and do interesting things and keep myself excited. Um, so yeah, I mean, this was really fun. I would say I don't know if I got fully pushed into this. I did volunteer. It was teed up like, hey, I'm about to push you into this, and I was like, no, that sounds cool. I'll do that.
I have a word for this. We call it well-intended bullying.
Yeah, it makes sense. Um,
Well, you can push Robert Downey Jr. into doing this with us too.
I would like to push him to do a lot of things.
Like
Have a very,
Robert, I got your next big gig. All right,
yeah,
it's an unpaid
right,
gig, but
right.
it's promoting your software.
He tends to have a pretty busy schedule, unfortunately. Like he's a little bit more tied up than I am. Um, but yeah,
Cool.
I'll see what I can
But
do. I will send him a text. We'll see what's going on.
great. But yeah, I figured it'd probably just be good to give us an idea how people can get started with Aura. Um, I know you guys have a free trial. There's a special Everbros deal.
Yeah. So if you want to support the show and you've liked the things that I've said today, or you're just kind of curious about how the product works, you can go to aura.com. So that's AURA. That's one of the things I've learned here is that not everybody knows how to spell that or what that word is. So there's a brand tip for you if you're coming up with an agency name. Try and find something that's easy to spell, and people from different regions in the country say it the same way. We worked with some influencers, and they kept saying Aurora, and I'm like, that is a different word. Um, so it's Aura, AURA. And if you go to aura.com/everbros, you can get a free trial there, and you'll help support the show when you do that. But we offer a 14-day free trial. When you get the free trial, it's just like using the full featured product, right? So you can do everything in that free trial. Honestly, like if you just want to try it, you can try it, and it will remove your data from data brokers. You'll get a month's, basically benefit of some of these things. So I definitely suggest giving it a shot. And we have a discount as well when you go through that link. So you'll get whether you choose to buy an individual plan or a family plan, there's different discount rates for all those. You save even more when you buy an annual plan. So that's typically what our customers do is they'll buy an annual plan. A lot of times we'll start with a free trial. We have a really, really great support team. So if you sign up with the product and you're like confused of how it works, feel free to give us a call. Happy to help people out. If you're not really tech savvy, that's also a good way to go about it too. We'll walk you through, how to use things, or set up your call assistant on your phone, things like that. So, but yeah, if you go to that web address, you'll find all the information on the product. There's a couple things I think that differentiate us as well. So within the product, we try and make all of the plans like fully featured. Like a lot of companies will do like the starter plan, the pro plan, the ultimate plan, and all, and you're doing like, analysis of like, what do I need from this one and that one. We try and make it simple. We've tried to stick to the individual couple family. So it's just like, how many people, who do you want to protect? And if you know the answer to that question, it should be fairly easy to sign up. If you sign up for an individual, you can always add people later too. So if you want to try it for yourself and add your wife or kids or whatever, you can certainly do that in the future. The other thing that we don't do is we don't raise your price on renewal, which is like a really big deal. If you buy things online and you're buying subscription services, look at the fine print. You're generally like, you might find a cheaper product that's $10 a month, and then year two you're paying $50 a month, right? So sometimes we are a little bit more expensive than competitors, but it's like, that's the price, right? So we've tried to kind of simplify in a lot of different ways, and pricing was one of those where the price is what it is. So give it a try, Aura.com/everbros. And I hope you enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, guys, Jason, thanks for joining with the Everbros podcast. It was good to have you on and actually have someone who's an expert in digital security, and has a little bit of background in the agency marketing space. Stick around. I just gotta let these files upload all the way. But if you guys want to support the show, like Jason said, go to the link below, get the free trial, do the scan, see how you like it. If you don't want to support the show, I don't even know why you're listening. So you're like an hour and a half into this podcast, and you're like, nah, I'm not going to support them. I won't use the link. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
See ya.